Well, I got a puppy, but I'm sure everyone is tired of hearing about that because I've been talking about it for so much. So I'm sorry if you've heard
What kind?
a Great Pyrenees. Let me see if I'm gonna see if I can get her on camera.
Oh.
We're sleepy right now.
Beautiful. What's her name?
Her name is Daphne from Scooby-Doo.
Oh, that is the sweetest.
Yeah, she's a handful. I was telling Alex and Rebecca that she might have cured me from wanting to have my own children because she's like literally an infant and trying to kill herself every second. So it's like I haven't slept in 2 weeks. So
You have perfect mother genes. Perfect.
I'm going to my first high school reunion tonight.
Your first one?
Well, the first one I'm going to. It's 35 years, but
yeah. So this the graduation, where's the venue? Or not the graduation, sorry, the reunion.
It's Golden, Colorado, and it's just in some, in a restaurant. If anyone has advice for me about going to a high school reunion, go ahead and put it in the chat bar.
Yeah, that's a little nerve-wracking.
Well, we're still getting a few more signups, but maybe we should go ahead and start. First, I want to introduce Alex Pepple, who I think many people will know. So he can sort of start us off. Alexander Pepple founded and edits Able Muse and Able Muse Press, and also founded and directs the Erratosphere online workshop. His poetry and prose have been or will be published in Barrow Street, River Styx, American Arts Quarterly, Light, Think Journal, Euphony, Per Contra, Eclectica, Measure, and elsewhere. And he edited the 2010 Able Muse anthology. So Alex, you can kick us off.
Well, thank you everyone for showing up. And I guess first I have to address, someone just posted on the chat about everyone being La Muchacha, and they want to know how to fix that. So I will say, if you go to the gallery view, you see the three dots to the right, just click that and click rename. And you should be able to get out of the La Muchacho crowd.
Yeah, you can't fix it, other people's problem, but everyone can individually fix their La Muchacho problem.
Or Rebecca can fix it for you because she's.
Or yeah, if you send your name in, well, I need to know who you are to change it for you.
Yes. And so thank you all for being here this afternoon. It's good to see all your virtual faces. It seems we're going to have a really popular and well-attended event today because we have about 150 registered, and so far 70 have shown up, which is great. Mm-hmm. I've posted some links in the chat for the books and websites of our readers, James and Rosemary and Jennifer. And I think let me just go into the, I'll try to share that also while I'm talking, see if that works. Okay. So this is what I've shared with everyone. Let's see. There we go. All right, so these are the links I've shared with everyone, and so first about the links, I will have to point out that we've closed our submission for both Able Muse and for the press, and it was well received this year, and we're taking good care of all your submissions. And so now, for those of you who haven't subscribed to Able Muse, I'll suggest you do so because we'll have the new issue forthcoming before the end of the year. And as a subscriber, you also have access to all the digital issues which are online. And now about our readers today, I have another slide with all their all their books to show you. Let's see if I can find that here. Oh, there we go. See, let me start from the beginning. So we'll have, as I mentioned, we'll have James Pollock, Jennifer Reeser, and Rosemerry Wahtola Trommer, and our host, Rebecca. Sorry. So for James, we'll have his book, he's reading from his book, which is Sailing to Babylon, and also any new work he has currently. And for Jennifer, Jennifer has a popular indigenous book, and also a new book forthcoming from Able Muse, which is called Strong Feather. And she will read from those and maybe other of her works, depending on what she wants. And of course, Rosemerry has her sexy book cover, Naked Fatigue, and she will also be reading from that and other work of hers.
Okay, let's point out right now that is not me, though, on the cover.
Yeah, everybody thinks that's Rosemerry. She wants you to know it's not her. And also, Rebecca has 2 books with Able Muse Press. She has Time Is Always Now, the first one, and then the one about her dogs and more, Fetch Muse. So thank you all for being here, and I hope we'll have a wonderful event, and I think we will enjoy our afternoon now. And I hand it off now to Rebecca. Rebecca, take it away.
Great. Okay, so we're going to have each of the readers read for 15 or so minutes, and then we'll have a Q&A for all the readers, and then each poet will read a final poem at the end too. So make sure you stay around for that. Starting alphabetically, we're starting with James Pollock. I'm going to, well, I'll highlight you afterwards. James Pollock is the author of Sailing to Babylon, Able Muse Press 2012, a finalist for the Griffin Poetry Prize and the Governor General's Literary Award in Poetry, and winner of an Outstanding Achievement Award in Poetry from the Wisconsin Library Association. Also the author of You Are Here, Essays on the Art of Poetry in Canada, Porcupine's Quill 2012, a finalist for the Forward Review's Book of the Weir Award for a collection of essays. He is also editor of the Essential Daryl Hine, Porcupine's Quill, which made Partisan Magazine's list of the best books of 2015. A new book of his poems, Durable Goods, is forthcoming from Véhicule Press, Signal Editions in September. His poems have appeared in the Paris Review, Agni, Plume, The Walrus, and many other journals. They have also won the Manchester Poetry Prize, the Magna Editors Prize, and the Guy Owen Prize from Southern Poetry Review, and have been reprinted in anthologies in Canada, the US, and the UK, including The Next Wave, an anthology of 21st century Canadian poetry. His essays and reviews have appeared in Contemporary Poetry Review, Canadian Notes and Queries, Literary Review of Canada, and elsewhere. He graduated from York University in Toronto, earned a PhD in Literature and Creative Writing from the University of Houston, and is now professor of English at Loras College. He lives with his wife and son in Madison, Wisconsin. So welcome, James.
Thank you so much, Rebecca. Welcome to everybody. It's fantastic to have such a great turnout, and thank you to Alex and Karina and Rebecca for organizing this reading. So I'm just going to share my screen so that you can all see what I'm reading here. I'm going to read 7 poems from Sailing to Babylon, and then I'll read 7 poems from the new book, Durable Goods. So let's do it in chronological order. Whoops, this is the wrong book. Here we go. All right. So this is the very first poem in Sailing to Babylon. It's a poem after a poem by the modern Greek poet Constantine Cavafy called Ithaca, which, if you know that poem, you'll remember that it's a poem about the story of Odysseus returning home to the island of Ithaca, where he's the king, which is the story of the Odyssey. My poem is a kind of response to Cavafy's poem, which begins something like, when you set out for Ithaca. So it's addressing the reader as though the reader were Odysseus. My poem is in some ways modeled after that poem by Cavafy, but it's about an event from 19th century history called the Franklin Expedition, which was a British naval expedition in search of the Northwest Passage in the northern archipelago of Canada. And it ended in tragedy. They've just recently dug up the ships that were lost in that expedition. By the way, the names of the ships are fantastic. They're the Terror and the Erebus. Erebus, of course, of the underworld from Roman mythology. And I should also mention that blue gums, colic, and paralysis of the wrists are the symptoms of lead poisoning, which is what undid the expedition. They were eating food out of tins, which was a new technology. The tins were lined with lead. They had no idea that they were giving the crew lead poisoning. Northwest Passage, after Cavafy, the Franklin Expedition, 1845 to 48. When you set out to find your Northwest Passage and cross to an empty region of the map with a headlong desire to know what lies beyond, sailing the thundering ice fields on the ocean, feeling her power move you from below. When all summer the sun's hypnotic eye won't blink and the season slowly passes, an endless dream in which you're forever diving into pools, fame's image forever rising up to meet you. When the fall comes at last triumphantly and you enter Victoria's narrow frozen strait and your terror and Erebus freeze in the crushing flows. In that long winter night among the steeples of jagged ice and the infinite empty plain of wind and snow, when the sea refuses to be reborn in spring, 3 winters pass without a thaw, and the men, far from their wives and children, far from God, are murdering one another over cards. When blue gums, colic, paralysis of the wrists come creeping indiscriminately among you, and you leave the ships and set out on the ice, dragging the lifeboats behind, loaded with mirrors and soap, slippers and clocks, into the starlit body of the night, with your terrible desire to know what lies beyond. Then, half mad, snowblind, even then, before you kill the ones who've drawn the fatal lots and take your ghastly communion in the snow, may you stumble at last upon some band of Inuit hauling their catch of seal across the ice and see how foolish you have been, forcing your way by will across a land that can't be forced, but must be understood, toward a passage just now breaking up within. All right, change of tone for this next poem. This poem was anthologized in a book of baseball poems, and it, in my mind, memorializes my father, who was a huge baseball fan. Pretty self-explanatory. Radio. The kitchen dark, the summer night air warm, and my father at the kitchen table, radio turned down low, alone, listening to baseball. My mother and I come inside from our swim, toweling off. The crowd is restless. Long silences between pitches in the play-by-play. Look how he holds the radio in both hands like a steering wheel, thumb on the tuning dial to catch the wavering channel, fighting static. His eyes glitter like a field of fireflies. This next poem is part of a kind of chain of influence. So probably starting with Arthur Rimbaud's poem Poets at Seven, and then Donald Justice's poem called The Poet at Seven, and then Edward Hirsch's poem called The Poet at Seven. Edward Hirsch was a professor of mine in graduate school. Once I found out that his poem was a response to Donald Justice's poem and so on, I knew, okay, I've got to write one of these myself. The Poet at Seven. If only he could watch his teacher read and, gazing, could lean there at his desk in the winter light of Hillcrest Public School and listen as she speaks the strangest words, with her vivid face, her braided hair and dark eyes like a real and ordinary siren's. If only he could wait like that forever while Miss Harmon reads the Odyssey, his kind young teacher with the ringing voice he loves so much, he lets the story sing into his heart. She would peal out for him, swaying above him like a slender bell, the breaking changes of a life to come. This next poem has to do with a story that my father used to tell about his childhood. So he grew up on a farm in southwestern Manitoba during the 1920s and 30s, you know, during the Dust Bowl Depression. And his father was a Jehovah's Witness and his mother was a Methodist. And they used to have terrible arguments about the meaning of the book of Revelations. They had like 7 kids. And so my father talks about how horrible it was to be in the middle of these apocalyptic arguments. So this poem is not about that, but it is about the Bible that belonged to my grandmother, and presumably this is where she would get her quotations about the meaning of the book of Revelations from. So this is about a family heirloom, this Bible. My grandmother's Bible, Mary McConnell, née McConnell, Mary Pollock, née McConnell, 1887 to 1959. The shape, the heft of a shovelful of sod, a sheaf of God, its soft, worn, pebbled grain of supple Levant Morocco. 2 rips yawn along the spine, 2 inches long, a strip of leather's lacking at the top. The pages, inked in foxed and well-thumbed red along the 4 edges like 1,000 lips, are gilded on heads and tails, the gilt half faded. Out of the biblical plagues of the 1930s, black storms of dust, vast ravening clouds of grasshoppers, comes this blasted, smoking heirloom, a nut brown flap of torn and weathered leather wrapping a slab of paper. Its English plunges into my heart like a small black bird. Okay, this is the title poem of the book, Sailing to Babylon. I sailed a boat to Babylon and rowed back lonely in the rain. I struck out down a country lane. I set my course for Avalon. But once I'd crossed the Acheron and slept beside the silver Seine, I sailed my boat to Babylon and rowed back lonely in the rain. I've worshipped at the Parthenon. I've loved the girls of Aquitaine. But when they lay my bones in Spain, oh, tell the Tetragrammaton, I sailed my boat to Babylon and rowed back lonely in the rain. All right. I think I was reading a lot of Polish poetry when I wrote this poem. Zbigniew Herbert in particular is a favorite of mine. The Museum of Death. In the Museum of Death, the guests are eating lunch made from a dead man's recipe. They use knives and forks invented by the dead. Everyone sits in a room built by those who are no longer with us. Everyone speaking words the dead have made. Everything is archaeological. Prayer, toilets, table manners, cash. Even the air was once breathed by the dead. Look how impatiently the curator taps his fingers on his desk. It's getting late. Very soon the guests will have to go. Someone posted this poem on Facebook the other day, and one of the comments, I think it was Alfred Korn, wrote, "Hurry up, please, it's time." And I thought, yeah, I bet I had that in the back of my mind from the wasteland. Okay, one more poem from Sailing to Babylon. This is one of my favorite Canadian culture heroes, Northrop Frye, the literary critic. This is an incident from his life as an undergraduate. He was pulling an all-nighter writing a paper on William Blake, and he was at a diner called Bull's Lunch on Bloor Street in Toronto. This is 1934. He's like 20 years old or something, and he was like on Benzedrine or something because he was trying to stay up all night, and he had this moment of insight in which he had this vision of English literature and its relationship to the Bible all in a flash. Northrop Frye at Bull's Lunch. This is a quotation from an interview with Frye. "I have had sudden visions." Bloor Street, Toronto, 1934. 3 a.m. in the all-night diner, dizzy with Benzedrine and lack of sleep, old books and papers scattered across the table. With his pen, his Dickensian spectacles, his pounding, driving bourgeois intellect, he charges into a poem by William Blake with 2 facts and a thesis, cuts Milton open on the table like a murdered corpse, and spins it like a teetotum until he's put each sentence through its purgatory and made the poet bless him with a sign. Thus, though perhaps one can picture this only from a point outside of time, he sees the shattered universe around him explode in reverse and make the flying shards of its blue rose window whole again. Okay, I'm going to switch now to some short poems from my new book, forthcoming in September from Véhicule Press in Montreal. And if you go to my website, you can pre-order it now. It actually exists. It's in hard copy now. I've seen a picture of it, but it's yet to arrive on my doorstep, but hopefully it will soon. So this is a book of poems inspired in part by John Keats's idea of the chameleon poet who enters an imagination into things and takes part in their being. There's a long period, a long tradition of thing poems, or Dingedichte in German, that has happened since Keats, although usually those are poems about animals or plants or even works of art. My book is different in the sense that it's all about machines and appliances and tools. Ceiling fan. Seen from below, a white 5-petal flower. In fact, an artist whose medium is air, who combs it with these pale palette knives, hour on hour, stirring the room, spinning with care to keep this slow whirlpool in circulation. It gives you the chills like an erotic spouse. If you ramp up the speed of its rotation, it starts to imagine it could lift the house. Spectacles. Arms folded on the desk. They're skeptical, aloof. They have their own way of seeing things that is slightly off. Not magical exactly, but somehow mind-bending in the way they turn the world, if not to their will, at least away from the world's will, if the world may be said to have one. True visions achieved through speculative skill. Barometer. It knows how much pressure you've been under, that you could use a change of atmosphere. Your seasonal depressions, rain and thunder, are easier to predict than they appear. But how long can you bear this cloudy heap under this weather, this black gloom, this despair? Will it crush you in your fitful sleep before the rising pressure clears the air? This one begins with an epigraph from Hamlet. You may remember the name of the play within the play is, well, it's The Murder of Gonzago, but Hamlet refers to it as the Mousetrap. Mousetrap. 'Tis a knavish piece of work, but what of that? Hamlet. It's going to snap, but for now it just kills time, high-strung, tongue-tied, sitting tight among floor crumbs. How can it not give you the chills? A little peanut butter on its tongue. Whole divisions deployed all over town, assigned to be assassins of the mouse. The coiled spring that brings the hammer down has one thing to say. Death is in the house. Sorry for the flashing on your screen. All right, briefcase. This devoted vehicle to which you're married brims with what it tries to convey. The tenor of which is that it gets carried, when it can't contain itself, away. Of all bags, it's the best to be left holding. An outward carry-all of inward space. Often it carries the day in its unfolding out of everything that oddly is the case. Screw. Spiral staircase. Or ramp, rather, as in a tiny parking garage, or the chutes of the Scarlet Runner. Such things as spin a helix, one of nature's absolutes, into the matrix of the universe. Turn the self-locking vortex by the head with your torquing driver. Such tight verse holds all things together by a thread. And one more. Saw. So the image here is of a saw hanging on a wall. Saw. The panel saw on its hook, like a rag of map. Its blade an obtuse triangle of plane. its serrated edge a sierra, scrap of landscape lush with spirits of the slain. It's skilled at long division and, like the law, separates what is good from what is true. That's the Cartesian wisdom of this old saw, for whom one divided by one is two. All right, thank you.
Thank you. And I invite everyone to unmute if you'd like to applaud.
Wow.
Terrific. Absolutely terrific.
I'll even yell.
Terrific.
Beautiful.
Yeah.
Thank
Yeah.
you.
Impressive.
Wonderful. Terrific.
Absolutely. Okay, just a minute. I'm going to unspotlight you. Sorry. And introduce Jennifer. Jennifer Reeser is the author of 6 collections of poetry, most recently Strong Feather, Able Muse Press 2022, and preceding it Indigenous, Able Muse Press 2019, which was awarded Best Poetry Book of 2019 by Englewood Review of Books. Her first book, An Alabaster Flask, was the winner of the WordPress First Book Prize. X.J. Kennedy wrote that her debut ought to have been a candidate for a Pulitzer. Her third, Sonnets from the Dark Lady and Other Poems, was a finalist for the Donald Justice Prize. Her fourth, The Lalaurie Horror, debuted as an Amazon bestseller in the category of epic poetry. Reeser's poems, reviews, and translations of Russian, French, Cherokee, and other Native American languages have appeared in Poetry, Rattle, The Hudson Review, Ricoeur au Poème, Light Quarterly, The Formalist, The Dark Horse, Salt, Able Muse, and elsewhere. A biracial writer of European American and Native American Indian ancestry, Reeser was born in Louisiana. She studied English at college in Oklahoma and also at McNeese State University in Louisiana. She now divides her time between the Louisiana Gulf Coast and her land on the Cherokee Reservation in Indian Country near Tahlequah, Oklahoma, capital of the Cherokee Nation of which her family is a part. So welcome, welcome, Jennifer.
Thank you very much. Is everyone hearing now?
Yes.
Okay. Thank you so much. I want to say to Alex and also to La Muchacho, everyone who has come, thank you so much for coming. And to our lovely hostess. I am going to be reading from both Indigenous and Strong Feather, but mixing them up some. So I'm going to begin with a bit of lighthearted verse. The speaker of this poem is Indigenous through both parents, but from different nations, different peoples. Her mother is Cherokee, but her father is Sioux and Osage Indian. Now, the thing is, Cherokee is matrilineal. You trace who you are, your identity, through your mother in the Cherokee tribe. However, with the Osage who come from Siouan peoples, it is a patriarchy. And so this speaker's father being Osage, he is somewhat chafed by his daughter's choice to identify with her mother being female. And so this is called In Praise of My Osage Side. My father teases me, I cherish Cherokee from mother, holding his tribe's genes a ruin. But what he doesn't know, because my key is low, my pleasure in his blood of Osage Siouan. As one of many daughters to people of mid-waters, by name mine is a pride no man can pierce, nor mortify through jibe. I'm traced from that strong tribe of tallest, finest looking, and most fierce. Of any native race inhabiting this place, who thus established their authentic grounds. These hard 2,000 years beside the trail of tears, my Osage half claims fame around those mounds. Cahokia, where I climbed upward toward the sky to find what Job and Moses must have found. So, though my Cherokee is matrilineally my truer tribe, by whose stock I was raised, let it be never said that, selfish and ill-bred, I left the Osage slighted or unpraised. Now, I'm going to switch to Indigenous. I have dedicated the forthcoming book, Strong Feather, to my sister. Now, she is now known to the Cherokee as Many Cups for all the coffee that she drinks. But my grandmother early on gave her the Indian name of Bee, as in honeybee. And we were very close growing up. And this is although we are separated, she now lives in Indian country while I spend most of my time in Louisiana, though I do go there also. But she and I would prank each other, and she continues to prank me in dreams. And this is called To Melissa Honeybee, Who Has Hidden My Feathers in a Dream. No sorrow would I feel had they been arrows. Such weapons would be easily replaced by virtue of their Fletcher's measures, traced with ease and found in native caves or barrows. But the great Spirit's eye is on the sparrows, and the good Fletcher's hand itself has graced those hollow quills which fly more true, and placed escape from human sin within their marrows. Without it, hear me, sister, I will perish. So while this prank may be an awful dream made by some midnight devil to torment me, and while you share no love for what I cherish, your character not cruel as it might seem, you take what he, to save my life, has sent me. The next one is not an original of mine, but it is a translation, and there are several translations of various things in both Indigenous and Strong Feather. This is Formula for Frightening a Storm, which is an actual ancient Cherokee shaman's formula, is what they're called. They're not called spells. Please don't ever call them spells. They're formulas. Medicine men of the Cherokee were fond of using mockery as a method of alleviating and curing problems. They would literally speak to the problem, and they would often laugh at it. They would belittle it, and this was a way of gaining power over the disease. And this is called Formula for Frightening a Storm. Ha! Listen. Now you're coming into rut, and I am vastly apprehensive, but you follow on the course your wife takes merely, and I have pointed out her footsteps clearly. Observe them going upward to the sky. The paths in your possession there will lie without disturbance. Let your passage seize the lofty mountains and the tops of trees. Listen, let your walkways as they go along meet where the waving branches blow. Back to Indigenous. With an actual legend following on my translation of the Cherokee medicine man or shaman. This is called the water cannibals. And the Cherokee, just like every other society and every other civilization, used stories, they used legends and fables to teach their children values. And this, called the water cannibals, was one way that the Cherokee taught children the work ethic and how not to be lazy and to get their jobs done. The water cannibals, a Cherokee legend. Before the dawn arrives, arise, your weariness, however deep, swabbed absolutely from your eyes, with all the vestiges of sleep. The demons search for sluggish flesh by daylight, whether sweet or sour, uncaring whether old or fresh, and like the woodland wolves devour, destroying children, maids, and men alike. With ghostly arrows they transport to death the laggard, then to beds of river, stream, or bay, to leave a dummy in their place, which knows the way to act and speak and fool the tribe, who find the face convincing for another week. Arise and string your bow, get dressed. You saw them coming all along, though black clouds blow out of the west. These devils must be proven wrong. Arise, get dressed, and string your bow before sun rises in the east. Unlike the dreamer dragged below, who shall in liquid be their feast. And also from Indigenous, another legend. I'm heavy on the legends in this reading. Now this, if you visit the Museum of the Cherokee Indian on the Eastern Bands Cherokee Reservation in North Carolina, you will actually see this myth on the walls. It's a very well-known legend of theirs, and it goes back, it's ancient. And it is about how the tribe came to give up the hierarchy and to observe that everyone was equal. It is called Why the Cherokee Abandoned Privilege. At one time, there had been a privileged sect, Aniquatani, whom some elders say presaged the Cherokee with great respect, while some dismiss it outright with dismay. Perhaps this long ago society conceived, constructed, and preserved the mounds, but perished through some weird calamity, the constant fire extinguished, or wild hounds, or pestilence destroyed them with one blow. Each hallowed priest, each mystic minister drowned in a cataclysmic flood or snow, though some claim something much more sinister. These were the sanctified, those set aside and given preference, given supervision of ceremony, who performed with pride the ancient rites in unsurpassed precision. Superior, the tribesmen would suppose, above and superseding any other, till one rogue misbehaving priest arose to take the wife of their chief's own brother. Akin to Brahmins, they, through birthright law, the Nikatani, held as though by rain the people in rare reverence and awe, and thus grew fat with rudeness and disdain. They had ascended, and none could discover their means of massacre, nor where they're buried. A lovely woman they would make a lover, even the shrinking maid, even the married. The tribe endured with brooding for a time each new atrocity from this high caste, each overbearing insolence and crime, until a daring brave appeared at last. The son of an authoritative man, avenging the dishonor of his wife, who led the Cherokee to kill the clan, not sparing any Nicotanee life. Not since that bloodbath do the Cherokee exalt a single soul, nor tolerate entitlement by birth. Society admitting neither paramount nor great. Now, the last sonnet that I would like to read is autobiographical. It is a personal poem, and I refer to it as my MMIW poem. Some of you may have heard of the cause and movement MMIW. It is Missing and Murdered Indigenous Women. And what happened was one day I got a panicked call from my sister in Indian country saying, "Pray for Mary. She didn't come home from work last night and we can't find her." And this has an epigraph from the New York Times of May 22nd, 2012, with the statistic: 1 in 3 American Indian women have been raped or have experienced an attempted rape, according to the Justice Department. Their rate of sexual assault is more than twice the national average. I see you, Mary, leaving the casino at 1 a.m., you faithful Cherokee. Your shift done, not in Vegas, nor in Reno, but Tulsa, Oklahoma, tribal tree. What is it that this rare ethnicity we share should be so hunted still, so marked by every predator prowling near and far? His cowboy hat pulled low, I see him parked, as mine was, waiting in his red-skinned car, beneath approved security's white light. Sister of my sister, what we are is savage's distraction for a night. Hard rock, we call it, we offended few. No, Mary, no, not this time, and not you. Thanks.
Thank you, Jennifer. And again, I invite everyone to unmute to applaud.
Powerful. Really very powerful. Very moving and powerful.
Touching.
Thank you. Thank you.
Job.
And now I'm going to ask everyone to mute again. I can mute all, but then the next speaker will need to unmute. So I hope you can mute yourselves. I can go in and mute you if you forget. So 1 second, I'm going to, okay. So Rosemerry, our third reader, Rosemerry Wahtola Trommer co-hosts Emerging Form, a podcast on creative process, Secret Agents of Change, a surreptitious kindness cabal, and Soul Writers Circle. Her poetry has appeared on A Prairie Home Companion, PBS NewsHour, O Magazine, Rattle.com, American Life in Poetry, Carnegie Hall Stage, and her daily poetry blog, 100 Falling Veils. Her most recent collection, Hush, won the Halcyon Prize. Naked for Tea was a finalist for the Able Muse Book Award. One word mantra, adjust. So welcome, Rosemerry. And I will spotlight you.
Thanks, Rebecca.
Yep.
And thanks, Alex. And thanks everyone for showing up. Would you do me a favor, even if I'm highlighted in your screen, would you, if you're willing, show your face? I have mine on gallery view so that I can feel like I'm in a room with you, and I'd love to see your faces. And hi, let's just wave to each other. Hi, friends. Hi. Thanks for showing up on a Saturday afternoon. I'm really grateful to be here. And reading, I was putting together the poems from, oops, you can't really see, there we go, Naked for Tea. Well, you saw it earlier. It was like seeing old friends again. These poems, you know, the book came out in 2018 and they were so fun. I remember to write, and they're fun for me to read. I plan on having a really good time with it myself. And well, let's jump in. If I will say this, that people often say, well, what's your book about? And about this book in particular, I always say failure. These are poems about failure. And you'll find out why, I suppose. This one starts with a poem by Hafez. It's just a piece of a poem from Why Just Ask the Donkey, a version by Danny Ladinsky. Why just ask the donkey in me to speak to the donkey in you, when I have so many other beautiful animals and brilliant colored birds inside, longing to say something wonderful and exciting to your heart. The precious matter of love. Dear, though I have come to you as many other beautiful animals, as long-necked swan and Persian cat, though I have worn for you my most vermilion feathers and sung for you in the voice of the bird that always disappears just before it can be named, though I have come to you as lamb, as heron, please do not refuse my donkey, all clumsy and curious and stubborn, all tug and bray and gray and dull and smelling of dung. Of course you would want to turn away, but please, if you can, meet me this way when I'm awkward, stepping on my own feet, yours too. Meet me when I am unlovable and love me then, though I stink. Though I'm not easy, nor graceful, nor lovely, but strong. And here I am, nuzzling your hand as it opens, aspiring to be nowhere but here. Dear, we are nothing more than flesh for life to push through, and I'm done hiding inside the bright wings. Or, even for that matter, beneath a dun hide. Only a heart touches another heart. So here's mine. The title poem for this book, Naked for Tea, is actually one of the first lines in the poem. The poem is called That's Right. I'm gonna open it up and look at it. Once upon a time, these were all totally by heart, but there haven't been many readings lately. So I'm just gonna open it up to give myself a chance to fall back into it if I need to. Page 10. That's right. I showed up naked for tea. I know it's not the proper thing to do. In fact, I'm a bit surprised myself to find I'm wearing nothing more than this pink scarf. I was wearing more when I left the house. At least it is soft, the scarf. At least it is warm, the tea. You don't have to pretend you don't notice. I won't pretend either. We'll go on. That's right, it is a bit awkward, as most things are at first, but maybe by the time we pass the cream, you will have slipped out of your own button-up shirt, your judgment, your embarrassment, your belt, and maybe it will be so wonderful, this lack of anything between us, that by the time we get to the bottom of our cups, we'll wonder why we would ever spend an afternoon together any other way. I think many of you are on my daily mailing list. I do write a poem every day and I send them out into the world every day. And my own mother had not been on the list, although she'd been asking for many, many years to be on that list. And finally, after a few years, I broke down and put her on it, partly because I didn't want her to have to worry about me and pray about me more than she already does. And I was worried that she was going to take the poems a little too much to heart. So when this poem about showing up naked for tea came out, the next morning, my mother, and this is how I picture her at her computer like this, Rosemary Gale, I hope that is a metaphor. And of course, I assured her that it was. But was it really? Okay, so let's see. Still on the theme of failure, this is a very long title. After my friend Phyllis shows me the New York Times obituary headline, Lou Michaels, all-purpose player, dies at 80, missed kicks in 69 Super Bowl. Okay, I want you guys just to think about that headline. Lou Michaels, all-purpose player, dies at 80, missed kicks in 69 Super Bowl. That's the headline of his obituary, his greatest failure. Are you kidding me? When I die, let them write about all the mistakes I've made. Let them mention in the headlines how many rejection letters I've received from the Sun. Let them say, Mr. Calling for Broadway back in 1987. Let them say, she trained hard, but she never did win a Nordic skate race. They can note how my children always fought in front of company, how every chocolate cake I ever made sank in the center, how the beets in my garden never grew bigger than golf balls, how I never even watched the Super Bowl, not even once, much less knew who was playing back in 1969 while I was still forming in my mother's womb, and Lou Michaels missed the 2 field goals that helped the Jets win. What do any of us really accomplish? My friend Wayne says, we do what we can and have mercy. Yes. Let them say, I did what I could. Let them say, I loved the best I knew how and messed that up too. It's what we do. We who are kicking our way to the back pages of the paper, well-intentioned and foundering, faithful and confused as we are, we mess up. Yeah, mercy on all our beating little hearts, how they fail and beat so sincerely. Mercy on this longing to shine, this longing to be brilliant, and all these reminders to show up exactly as we are. I thought I'd do one that we fit in James's new book. It's a poem about an object, or in this case, a vegetable. This is cruciferous. Tonight I have fallen in love with cauliflower. The way it gives itself so completely to the soup, the way it informs the curry with nutty sweetness, with bitterness. I love the way it turns to cream, how it loses all sense of its former shape and is still so wholly present. I know it is foolish, perhaps, to toss about a word as important as love, to spend it on a vegetable. No, I tell myself, worse to not fall in love with cauliflower. Worse to pretend it isn't a gift, an invitation to praise. Such simple worship. A bowl, a spoon, a willing tongue. I'll do one more out of here. How it is. Over and over, we break and we break and we open. For a while, we try to fix the vessel as if to be broken is bad, as if with glue and tape and a steady hand, we might bring things back to perfect, as if they were ever perfect, as if to be broken is not also perfect, as if to be open is not the path toward joy. The vase that's been shattered and cracked will never hold water. Eventually it will leak. And at some point, perhaps we decide that we're done with picking our flowers anyway and no longer need a place to contain them. We watch them grow, just as wildflowers do, unfenced, unmanaged, blossoming only when they are ready. And my God, how beautiful they are, rising amidst the mounting pile of our shards. I want to thank Alex Pepple, by the way. What a crazy thing to do, to have a poetry press, to support other poets and put their work out into the world. And thank you for doing something so impractical and so full of heart. I'm so grateful. I guess I'll close with a poem that's new. It will be in my new book, which will come out in April. It's called All the Honey, coming out with Samara Press. And this is watching my friend pretend her heart isn't breaking. And Jennifer, I certainly thought about you when you were reading your final poem to Mary. And so this is for you and Marian, I suppose, for really for all of us. Watching my friend pretend her heart isn't breaking. On Earth, 1 teaspoon of neutron star would weigh 6 billion tons. 6 billion tons is the equivalent of every animal on Earth, including the insects, times 3. 6 billion tons sounds impossible until I consider what it is to swallow grief. Just 1 teaspoon, and one may as well have consumed a neutron star. How dense it is, how it carries inside it the memory of collapse, how impossible to believe anything could ever lift that weight. There are many reasons to treat each other with great tenderness. One is the sheer miracle that we're alive together on a planet surrounded by dying stars. And another, none of us can see what anyone else has swallowed.
Wonderful. Thank you, Rosemary. Asking all to unmute again. A moment of applause.
Wonderful. Very moving.
Gotta get a Kleenex.
Thank you.
Excuse me.
That was beautiful.
That's amazing. Very
Beautiful.
good.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Beautiful.
Thank you.
Very moving.
Very much.
Let me just do this.
Okay, and now everyone should have gallery view for the Q&A time. If we have about 15 or 20 minutes for people to ask questions. I know because Rosemary has to leave right at 4:30. I want to make sure she has time to read a final poem. But since there's so many of us, if you want to you can put a question in the chat, or if you know how to raise a hand, if you go to reactions down on your right next to the green share screen button, if you raise hand, then I'll see it and I can field a question. I think, is someone sharing a screen right now? I see Zoom.
Nobody's sharing the screen.
Is someone sharing? I'm going to
Let's just disable the sharing.
yeah, I'm going to disable that. Let's see.
Yeah.
Okay. Sorry. Haven't.
No.
Anyone want to start us off with a question? Maybe something for all three poets? I can if no one's feeling. Yes, someone? Yes, Lee, go ahead.
Formerly, the artist formerly known as La Muchacho. I wanted to say to Jennifer, thank you so much. The first book of translation I loved as a practicing poet with a newly minted MFA was Howard Norman's Wishing Bone Cycle, the translations from the Swampy Cree. Do you know that?
I don't know that, but I'm glad that you mentioned, and I will.
Oh,
Is it still available?
Probably, A Books or Better World, any of those places.
Terrific.
But that I used to use that to teach 7th graders about metaphor. They had, one that they were teaching the children the values. One called Turtle Weight, because the little boy would, put his head out over the bank to see if he could find something that he would catch or bring home for supper or just play, the way kids do to learn skills. And I just wanted to make sure you knew to look for that one.
That is delightful. Thank you.
Yes, Mary Beth.
I have a question for all three poets, and I'd like to know when you started writing and who inspired you, but you'll have to keep it brief. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, I guess I'll start. So when I was a kid, I wanted to be a science fiction writer. I love science fiction novels, but I started getting interested in poetry when I was in 9th grade. We were reading some poems by William Blake. We read The Tiger and the Lamb, and I remember walking home from the movies. And you know how if you're trying not to step on the cracks in the sidewalk, you sort of walk in a rhythmical way. So I was walking in a rhythmical way, and the tiger burning bright came into my mind. And then I was looking up at the stars, and I started composing a poem in the same rhythm about the stars. And then I realized, oh my God, I've written a poem. So I ran home and wrote it in a little red notebook. So that was the first poem I wrote. Although my mother told me that when I was in 2nd grade, I wrote a rhymed couplet about brushing my teeth. So maybe not my very first poem.
Jim, don't you want to tell them that poem?
When I wake each morning early, I brush my teeth to keep them pearly.
Great. What about you, Rosemary?
Oh gosh, I feel I'm going to tell the exact opposite story of James. My first poetic hero was Shel Silverstein, who thrilled me. It made me, but I think the reason why I still to this day write a poem every day is because I learned really early that writing poems was fun and that there was so much joy to be had. And no matter how desperate, how difficult the poem was, every one of Shel Silverstein's poems has a super dark underbelly. But but there was this joy to be had. And then I had, listening to James again, I had this thought of, there he is listening to Tiger, Tiger, Burning Bright, and he's got this great beat. My beat was Blondie, was Rapture, Fast Five Freddy's on everybody's side. And I remember you go to the grocery store, get a loaf of bread and maybe more. And I have Blondie and Shel Silverstein to thank, but more recent heroes include Jack Riddle, who's right here on the call. He's a favorite poet of mine. And Naomi Shihab Nye and Ellen Bass and James Cruz and Danusha Lamaris. I'm an enormous fan of contemporary American poets. And there are so many people who I just fall in love with them and their poems right now. And I think reading contemporary American poetry right now is very exciting.
Mm-hmm. What about you, Jen?
Well, I have loved poetry since I was 5 years old, and my grandmother gave me an old childcraft book with beautiful illustrations in it, and there were poems in it by Shakespeare. Probably one of my earliest memory that I have, and I would ask any adult to read it endlessly to me, was Shakespeare's "Where the bee sucks, there suck I. In a cowslip's bell I lie." And so when I was 11 years old, I moved to a new school, and my English teacher, or it was called just language, she started a 6-week creative writing unit, and we had to come in every single day with a prompt, and we had to write poems and short stories. And so we did that for 6 weeks, and I just loved it so much that I never stopped. And I still have that notebook from when I was 11 years old with all those things in it. So I actually was writing in form at that time as well. I was writing limericks, and I was writing rhymed and metered verses. My teacher even has marked that I forced a rhyme in one of my early drafts. So it's been a long time.
Oh, thank you all.
Yeah, thanks. Lee, you have another question?
Bye all. Thank you so much.
Oh, yeah.
Bless your hearts. Have fun at your reunion, Rosemerry. That was great. Well, if I can get out of here.
Also, the question for one or all of the poets. I'm curious about what feeds your poetry now, or maybe what is an obstacle to it in your life that you have to work around, other ways you have to earn a living, say, if anyone feels interested in answering that.
I've been really thrilled by a collaboration. Well, collaboration's always exciting. And I've been working closely for some time now with Kayleen Aspo, who's a piano composer. She's been creating compositions for works of art by Vincent van Gogh. And so working with her piano music and his images and then writing into it, it's so sweet to feel really creatively cradled by both the sound and the visual. And it sure makes it easy to meet a blank page when you have that much richness to start.
Yeah, that's great. Jennifer, did you have?
I don't really too much anymore, but when I was years ago, before my children were grown and I became a lady of leisure, my biggest problems was my kids, trying to fit writing time in around that. And that is one way for me that form was just invaluable. I could hold phrases and entire lines and stanzas in my head for days if I needed to, until I could get them down on paper. So that was a very disciplinary time for me in learning. And that was probably my biggest obstacle, I would say.
Yeah. And James?
So in terms of obstacles, I mean, I don't know, not so much anymore, but I remember when I was in graduate school and trying to write better. And, you know, the hardest part about that before you've published a book is just believing that you're going to be able to do it. Once you've published a book and then you're working on the next one, sure, it's just as hard in a lot of ways, but you know that you can do it because you've done it. So it's something that I talk about with my own students a lot. And I say, you just have to, you know, trust that you're going to be able to get better and better, and you just have to keep at it. So, and then in terms of, you know, what feeds my poetry, I mean, this is kind of a boring answer, but just reading, but not just reading poetry. I read lots of other things too. I read, you know, philosophy and fiction and anthropology and comparative religions and, you know, all kinds of things. And I read somewhere that Percy Shelley used to like to have like 10 different books on the go at the time at a time when he was reading. I'm kind of like that. I've got a whole bunch of books that I'm reading, and they're all sort of crystallizing together in my mind, and somehow that ends up in my work. Somebody just asked, still science fiction? Not so much anymore, but I was a huge fan of Frank Herbert when I was a teenager. I loved Dune and all of that stuff. So, and I'm sure that you know, grounding is still somewhere in my unconscious somewhere.
Great, thanks. And I see Bill Carpenter has a question.
Yes, thanks very much. I appreciated Jennifer's comments about form being something that helped her write in very pressure-filled times, and, you know, a way of preserving the lines as she came up with them. Indigenous is just an exuberant collection of varieties of poetic form and meter, and really sort of incredible in that way. I'm curious whether Strong Feather is going to have that same kind of at least sort of underlying preoccupation with formal variety.
Yes, yes, it is. It is more than anything a continuation, I suppose, or I refer to it as a sequel. It's not exactly a sequel, but yes, there's one form after another in this book. So it's on par with that, I think. But, you know, ask Alex. He knows it well. He could give you a more objective answer.
Well, I will say yes, it is a sequel, and it's shaping up very well, and it's almost out, ready for press. So, Bill, I'll send you some messages when it's out, which is very soon.
Yeah, looking forward to it. Thanks.
Yes.
Thank you, Bill. Thank you for the question.
Great, and I think we have time for maybe one more question, and quick answers. Anyone?
I have a question. I can't seem to manage to raise my hand with the reactions here, but
You're all good.
I was wondering, I mean, I love hearing from all the poets. I was wondering if Alex could answer a question. And this is just because I want to figure Alex out. And so Rosemerry was saying how grateful she is for Alex's celebration of and promotion of and, you know, publication of poetry. I wonder, Alex, what began your love of poetry?
Well, my love of poetry actually was something that came very late in life, but I think I've always had an affinity for poetry, because I started in French schools and I read people like Guy de Maupassant and all that, and I was also into science and engineering. But even then, when I would write an email, my friend would tell me, this doesn't sound like something an engineer should be writing. Maybe you should write a book or something. So in many ways, I've always had an artist, a literary side, even though I'm an engineer. And that has that eventually kept developing to the point where once I went to a workshop that a friend of mine was giving at a college in California. That's when I started trying my hands at writing poetry. And she told me, I told her I wanted to start this website about poetry because it's not enough formal poetry websites. And she said, well, I'll tell, just go and do it, and I'll be your featured poet. And I said, okay, that makes it easy for me. So I did it, and she was Beth Houston, a good friend of mine. And from there, things kept picking up until this where it is today. Does that answer your question?
Yes, that did answer my question, and it's so interesting.
Thank you.
Thank you, Alex.
All right.
Yes, thank you. So I think we should let the poets read their last poem, and then I know Alex is going to tell us where to find. Someone asked me about where to find the recording later on, but he'll say a few words at the end too. So we can do the same order if people are happy with that. James, if you want to kick off.
Sure. Rebecca, can you let me share my screen again, please?
Oh, right. We prevented that. Okay, you should be able to now.
All right. Let's see, where is it? There we go. Okay. All right. This is the last poem in Durable Goods.
Oh, sorry. If everyone can mute, I'm going to mute all, and then James, just unmute yourself.
Sure. Okay. Wind turbine. From afar, you see the world's most graceful stickman demonstrating the backstroke. In the gale, he stands like Lear, but thoughtful, absorbing power as he moves, to invoke the element like Prospero, and argues with the whirlwind in the darkest hours, like Job. A tall poet breathing the muse, he transforms the windstorm into power's currency, which cools the air in which I write, and steadily over my shoulder and from the screen on which I type these words shines light. Make ready for the wind, and it will come.
Wonderful. And Jennifer, you unmute yourself.
Okay, hear me now?
Yep.
Okay. Mine is called My Brother's Arrowheads, and the eminent esteemed Bill Carpenter had just asked about Strongfeather forthcoming, if it would be more like was in Indigenous, and he's going to have an opportunity to read even more about my brother-in-law, who also in this one, there's a poem about his ambition to become the owner and operator of an indigenous cuisine restaurant in Tulsa. So this is called My Brother's Arrowheads. My brother's arrowheads affixed each to a saw-toothed blade, invisibly adhering, 3 of modest size and weighty grade, alike in form appeal to me. Across my brother's face appears his great-grandmother's dignified expression, that the trail of tears perfected as she walked and cried. Because he has unearthed this wealth of prehistoric artifacts himself by diligence and stealth, collecting arrow, spear, and axe. By offering these gifts to me, from which he claims I have my choice, my clear enthusiasm lifts his spirits with a passive voice. Archaic dovetails, bifurcates, indented sharp tangs at their base, appraise us from the metal plates where eons at a glance take place. A fluted Clovis spearhead hangs upright. Its pressured channel flake entices me with inner pangs. But this is one I cannot take. Too valued for this man to lose. Of all these paragons, his best. I realize he would not refuse aloud or mutely my request. The quartz and flint archaic trio, a side notch arrowhead by cast I finger, store enough of geologic power from the past. 10,000 years of time I hold at long last, and the worth thereof. Not any trouble to enfold when braided with a brother's love.
Wonderful. Now, Rosemary.
Thank you. The question. All day, I replay these words. Is this the path of love? I think of them as I rise, as I wake my children, as I wash dishes, as I drive too close behind the slow blue Subaru. Is this the path of love? Think of these words as I stand in line at the grocery store. Think of them as I sit on the couch with my daughter. Amazing how quickly 6 words become compass, the new lens through which to see myself in the world. I notice what the question is not is this right, not is this wrong. It just longs to know how the action of existence links us to the path of love. And is it this? Is it this? All day, I let myself be led by the question. All day, I let myself be not too certain of the answer. Is it this? Is this the path of love? I ask as I wait for the next words to come.
Great, thank you. Thank all of you. And if you need to leave, Rosemary, you can sign off. We'll just let Alex say a few words to.
Thank you all. It was such a wonderful reading, and thank you, Rebecca, for doing such a fantastic hosting job. I'll be having the recording for everyone maybe in a day or so, and if you're on our mailing list, you should get it. So I posted the links where you can find out how to get into our mailing list. And thank you, Rosemary, for a beautiful reading, and thank you likewise, James and Jennifer. It was a delightful afternoon of excellent poetry. And thank you all for showing up. And we had a very big crowd today.
Terrific. It's absolutely terrific.
Yes. Thank you all. And
Thank
see
you.
you next month for next month's event.
That was great. Terrific.
Thank you all.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Many thanks to everyone.
Yes, it's
Thank
terrific.
you, thank you,
Terrific.
thank you.
Absolutely terrific.
Yes, thank you so
Yeah.
much.
Have a great weekend.
Thank you all.
Bye-bye.
I'm letting people sign off sort of slowly, but I'll end it at
Yes, okay.
yeah.
That was beautiful. Thank you.
Really impressive reading, I agree.
Really beautiful.
Okay, thank you all.
Thanks, everybody.
So much appreciated, so much appreciated, and a wonderful time being here, as always.
Great.